This morning, we are turning the spotlight on the murder of Sade Robinson and how her alleged killer reportedly planned her death weeks in advance. Sade Robinson was last seen alive on a dinner date in Milwaukee with Maxwell Anderson, their first date, seen here in surveillance images from WITI TV. Cell phone records show that they ended up at Anderson's house, and then she was never heard from again. The next day, someone found a severed leg in a nearby park belonging to Robinson. Anderson is now accused of killing, dismembering, and leaving Sade's body parts all over Milwaukee. WISN television reports that a friend of Anderson's is now a confidential informant in the case. He told police that Anderson showed him a room in his basement where he planned to kill Sade. The search warrant indicated a plastic tarp covered a sanitation sink, and 3 saws were found in the room. The informant told police that Anderson planned on shooting Robinson and then dismembering her body in the room before disposing of her body throughout the city. Now, the defense has denied that these claims have any relevance and that this informant has any information. Let's bring in to discuss attorney and law professor Dante Mills and forensic death investigator, professor and host of the Body Bags podcast, Joseph Scott Morgan, is with us. Thank you both for sticking around with us. Joseph, I'm going to start with you. We've got this search warrant that is showing things that were recovered inside of the home. A P-trap from the sanitary tub in the basement, a pipe in the laundry area, swabs of stain and cushions on a leather couch with different debris. I mean, they've got a lot of stuff from inside of the house. How is this, in your opinion, going to be connected and put in front of a jury to indicate that this was, in fact, something that was planned out and that it connects to Sade Robinson?
I don't want to step on my colleagues' toes here relative to and get too far off into the law relative to this, but I have to say that if anything smacks of premeditation, this does. This individual is purposed, and we do know this relative to dismemberment cases. You need privacy for this, and what many people don't understand is that when you have cases of dismemberment, it is arguably one of the most messy affairs that an individual perpetrator can engage in because of all of the physical evidence that's left behind. It requires a lot of preparation. You have to have knowledge, and then all those things that you don't account for, particularly at even a molecular level of the things that you're leaving behind. I don't want to be too grotesque, but when you think about, say, for instance, even elements of bone that are left behind as a result of sawing, undetected blood, for instance, and even skin tissue, hair, those sorts of things. And the fact that things would be lined with plastic goes to this idea that he was mindful of this. And I got to tell you, it really sends a chill up my spine, because it's hard for me to fathom that this would be his first time out of the gate relative to something like this. And maybe it's just something he's been planning for a while, and he started with this poor young lady. I have no idea, but this would have taken time and purpose.
There are many people who are poised listening to see if there are going to be any connections between this defendant and any other unsolved cases, because even in his home, there was women's clothing that was located in the beams. There was this bedazzled compact mirror that seemed to belong to a woman. So there are these and names in a notebook. So there's this possibility, but we can't go there until we hear from police if they've got a connection. Dante, can you speak to where this defense is right now? Because you've got this informant, and that really could just finish off this case for the defense. But they are disputing that this informant is actually legit. Should the state even go there? They got a lot of evidence otherwise. He was the last person seen with Sade. Do you put this informant on the stand who may have credibility issues?
Absolutely, because what it shows, and I thank the professor for leaving me an avenue here, is the means, motive, and opportunity of the defendant to have planned this crime and to have the ability to carry it out. So you want to, when you're prosecuting a case, you want to make sure you have all of the pieces in place, especially as something as grotesque as this, as something as gruesome as murder. especially when you're talking about the possibility that there could have been other victims or would have been other victims. You want to make sure that this person, if he is responsible for this, does not have the ability to do it to anyone else ever again. And that means following through with every piece of evidence that you can. So you want to pair the fact that you had her cell phone ping at his house to show that she was there. And then you bring in this witness to talk about the layout that he had, where he had the plastic. He said in advance that he was going to do these types of things. It's disturbing that he had another woman's ID at his house, a 27-year-old woman. So you want to make sure that you have everything included in your case so that the jury hears as much as possible and they have everything they need to come up with a guilty verdict if, in fact, he is responsible for this, and make sure he goes away for a long time.
Joseph Scott Morgan, how aggressively do you think detectives are following up on these leads? They're looking for the woman whose ID it was, the woman's name's in the notebook. Yeah. Are they aggressively going after this case, or are they really focused on Robinson, and if they are led to something else? I mean, inquiring minds want to know.
Full court press here. And I'm telling you, you have to overturn every stone in this area when you begin to think about forgotten individuals that are walking the streets, these sorts of things, and looking for any elements that might, any kind of foreign DNA that's going to be inside of that basement. And I have to remind folks that there are any number of serial perpetrators that are out there over the years that have kept mementos. I think most famously is probably BTK. Many people remember him, and he actually had a hiding place where he would keep elements, and you know, they have, and I'm not a forensic psychologist, don't want to be one, but you know, they go back and they fantasize about these things and they try to relive it. It's something they can hold on to, you know, long after a body is gone. So these little elements, you talk about things like compact mirrors and all these sorts of things, and even intimate items, you know, with underwear and things like this. And I have no insight into what they may have found. However, I think that it would be prudent for them to tear this house down or go through it as with a fine-tooth comb, looking for any kind of foreign DNA that does not tie back to that residence specifically. And they need to pursue every potential lead, because I don't know how many open cold cases they have up there involving females that might fit her demographic and her specifics as far as age and appearance. But I think that they're probably pressing forward with this.
Let me follow up with you, Joseph, because this home was sold. It no longer belongs to Maxwell Anderson. Another family, ideally, is living inside of it. And the prosecutors and police have said, look, we've gathered all of the evidence we need to. We can go back when we want to. But you're talking about a full-on, deep, detailed, it seems like, a search of this house. You mentioned the words tear down to get to this information. Do you think that that's possible to do when you have another fully functioning family inside of that home that's not going to really be happy about the crime scene being torn apart like that?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I would. It's interesting that this house was sold to somebody and they might not have had knowledge of this. I'm kind of interested in that aspect as well. But yeah, I mean, if the family's cooperating with the police, you had talked about, or it has been mentioned, things being found in rafters, these sorts of things. It sounds as though they're going through every inch of this house. But that door has to be left open, and also any kind of further excavation that might need to take place in the surrounding yards as well. And let's keep in mind, he had various dump sites that he was going to. Famously, you know, we covered this on my podcast. Famously, you know, we had, I hate to talk about this so badly, so horrible, but limbs, you know, appearing out in the lake and this sort of thing that had been placed out there and had washed back ashore perhaps. Nothing is off the table here.
Absolutely. A gut-wrenching case, such a difficult one for the family of Sade Robinson, this community. Joseph Scott Morgan, thank you so much for your insight. Dante Mills as well. Joseph is sticking around. Dante, have a good rest of the day. Thank you for joining us.